Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Hey everybody, we're still here in OSHA Region 3. And just to let you know, we have some thunderstorms coming through, so the program may be interrupted. It's Thursday, June 26th. And I tell you what, we are ahead of the news. We are way ahead of the news sometimes. So I believe it was on Tuesday, we went through thimerosal on the Health and Human Services and their whole report and everything else on thimerosal. And what, lo and behold, what comes through here? A story on thimerosal. It all hit the news today. So, when, and of course I lose the story here. So, this was in the news. They hit the mainstream news. Here's from USA Today. RFK Jr.'s, and this is from 4 hours ago, RFK Jr.'s vaccine panel votes no on thimerosal. What is that, and why is it there controversy? A key vaccine committee, newly appointed by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., voted against recommending certain vaccines that contain a preservative long targeted by anti-vaccine advocates despite broad scientific census, and again, we have people, hey, you're on the air, so let's text you, nice to be noticed. Hello, Alicia. Right? Call against a preservative called thimerosal was first presented by Lynn Redwood, former leader of Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine group founded by Kennedy during during a June 26 meeting for the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. She argued that thimerosal is a neurotoxin and that the panel should recommend that only thimerosal-free flu vaccines for all pregnant women, infants, and children. The panel also voted the same recommendation for adults. Health experts were shocked to see that thimerosal, a preservative that has largely been phased out of U.S. vaccines, was on the ACIP agenda when it was posted on the Centers for Disease Control Prevention website on June 25th. Right, so it goes all the way down. No, they're saying it's safe, but we're getting rid of it. Oh, okay, great. Great on that. So we're, like I said, we're a couple of days ahead on that story here. So, what are we going to talk about today? We got a lot of stories from OSHA, but let's catch up on some of the other news that's out there. We're not going to be going into politics tonight, at least I don't think we are. But there's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of press releases issued today by OSHA and by the EPA. There's like 6 of them. We'll go into those. And, of course, we'll give some of our commentary, right? So we are a live show, and we'll give commentary here. You're gonna hear it from me. So here's a little bit of cultural news, right? This is from Variety today, article by J. Kim Murphy. Most U.S. exhibition executives think traditional moviegoing has less than 20 years as a valuable business model. I think it's probably less than that. More than 50% of exhibition executives polled in a new survey believe that the traditional cinema experience has less than 20 years remaining as a viable business model. poll conducted by analyst author Stephen Follows in collaboration with exhibitor news outlet Screen Dollar surveyed 246 U.S.-based executives in the film industry to give their opinions on the theatrical landscape's recovery after COVID-19 lockdowns. Flexible release, windowing, and the future of business is right on that. When asked how long do you expect traditional cinema experience to remain a viable business model, roughly 55% of exhibition executives stated that they believed they had less than 20 years, giving other viable answers such as less than 5 years or 10 years. I tell you, for me, right, I love going to the movies. I love it. But it's something she said, hold on here. I'm sorry, everybody. Here. Okay, some good news here. All right, some good news. All right. A story just came across. It was a safety story sent in by a listener. Thank you, Alicia. Right? About safety harnesses. So, check out. Okay, well, we might do that if it just came over. So, story on safety harnesses on ABC News today. When asked about how long you expect, right? So, let's get back to this. Again, I don't have a producer here. None of us do. So, I love the movie. I love watching stuff, the older stuff. I'm not too keen on the newer stuff because we have a thing in life called children, right? And I think part of the culture is that our children are used to this. And they're not really interested in going to the movies if they can have that. It's more of a social experience. Hey, Dad, take us there. Our friends are there. We're going to go there, watch a movie. Okay, what movie are you going to watch? Okay, all right, let me find out about, okay, we're good on that. And 9 times out of 10, we're good on the movies. And then we end up, what do we end up doing? I mean, when my home studio was completely flooded out a couple years ago, when we rebuilt it, we got a very large screen TV. So I could sit there and stream movies, there, and Netflix, Hulu, a couple of the other channels, Paramount, and we just, I'm there in my nice big brown chair watching things with that. So, again, people are more interested in generating their own content, more involved with, let's say, YouTube like we are right here, or Rumble, wherever you're watching this on. People want more of that. Why? Because of Jay Allen goes into it. Right, here's his book, Connection. People feel like they have a little bit more connection here. In a world where there is no connection anymore, things are scripted. One of the advantages, let's say you're a safety professional, one of the advantages of speaking extemporaneously is that you're going to get a better reaction from your audience. Whether that's going to be executives, whether it's going to be workers, hopefully the workers, because they're the sharp end of the stick, and everything else. Yeah, the worst thing you could go into is a scripted thing. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I went to EM385 training, 40-hour training, and it literally was a monotone AI voice reading off PowerPoints of 5 years ago. I mean, what was the review? The review was, I now understand why people have psychological damage after attending one of these courses. And they never want to attend one again. Because this was absolute hell. So what we end up doing here is having connection. I think on a platform like this, you're going to get that more than in a cinema. Now, don't get me wrong. I love going to the movies. Right? Love it. But don't do it enough. With that, I mean, me and my buddy Leon, we went out, we saw all the Star Trek movies in 3D. It was great. I remember Avatar in 3D. great movies, great experiences with that. You're not going to get that at home, but the thing is, right, big screen TVs now, you can pick up a nice projector and just put, nice. I picked up a beautiful projector for things. And yeah, we're watching things, the whole thing. Nice sound system that you don't have to, unless you have that golden ear, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So here's a article from Science, right? This is from archive.is. Here. Anna Gilmore, public health researcher. Just 4 products cause at least a third of all deaths. The British scientist examines the techniques that companies use to influence public opinion and how these impacts address our health. And I tell you what, it's a manipulation game, right? Again, manipulation game with everything. And when you realize that, I went to a webinar yesterday, and it's like, okay, you're giving us all of the sizzle, but none of the steak. And where is the steak? It's almost like listening to a David Icke presentation, right? 12 hours to hear a half an hour of conclusion here. No, it's challenging. It's not just genetic code and postal code that determine an individual's health. Everything around us, from the air we breathe to the products we buy at the grocery store, also plays a much more decisive role than anyone could imagine. Behind the habits and products that fill our days, there are powerful corporations whose actions that goes on and on and on. Okay, great. Now, what are the 4 things? So the scientist recently visited Barcelona, and to participate in a conference on social determinations of health. Here's a question. Are citizens aware of all these corporate practices? Answer. There are many things that happen behind the scenes with food products. We don't see how they are manipulated to make them increasingly desirable and more addictive. Everyone knows the story about the tobacco industry, which hid the harms of its products, or the fossil fuel industry. Which hid the problems of climate change, or I would say the behavior-based safety industry, this Jimmy talking, that hid the shortcomings of their own programs that put workers at risk and got everybody hating each other. Right? That wasn't Scott Geller or any of the other people's intention. But guess what? They bastardized this. They put it up on a slide. They make it look good. They have a very corporate person up there giving a very professional, and it sounds good. Hey, it sounds great. Tick the box. Yeah, we had a safety meeting. Boom, check the box. Oh, we had this. But, how many lives are lost there? About 50,000 a year, give or take. OSHA's numbers, not mine, with ineffective safety, right? What they don't know is that other industries engage in the same scientific process, right, going on. If consumers, right, perhaps so we are at least aware of the way they shape what I would call norms, our beliefs, and our thinking. Okay, she's on to something here. A Pepsi-Cola executive once said, if all consumers exercised, if they did what they were supposed to do, the obesity problem would not exist, right? So in other words, try harder. That is simply untrue, but it takes people, but it makes people believe obesity is simply their own fault, when in fact much more complex. It says, question, it says if everything is our responsibility. Answer, large corporations shape the norms to blame the individual. Sound familiar, everybody? Remember, I don't really pre-read these articles, right? You're getting this. Carbon footprinting is a term developed by British Petroleum to try to blame the individual. To say that the problem here isn't about big fossil fuel companies, but also about people who need to change the way they use their cars and for transport. We're going to bookmark this one here. All right? And when public and policy makers don't understand that corporations are shaping their way, they think that when you ask them what to do about obesity, their minds are filled with these ideas that corporations have instilled in them. Another thing that's really hidden when it comes to influence policy, an example is tobacco companies. which are no longer trusted because we have so much evidence of their bad behavior. What they do now is create a bunch of front groups. They set up other organizations they fund and hide behind. And it's those organizations that approach governments and say, oh, this policy is going to be bad. And very often, lobbying is done through these third parties. And once again, governments often fall into the trap of thinking, wow, all these different groups are telling us that this policy will be bad. But what they don't realize is that all these groups are funded by tobacco companies. Question, and it often feels like these companies control the world. Answer, they have a lot of power. They fund much more science research than the public sector. They can set up and fund these third parties, including charities, so that their power and influence are everywhere. And it goes on, no, control. Question, you're an expert on the fields of smoking. We know that smoking kills, and yet people continue to smoke. Why is that? Answer, smoking is highly addictive, and we know that tobacco companies manipulate cigarettes to make them more addictive. The evidence is clear. If the best policies are implemented, smoking rates will decrease. But governments are sometimes afraid to implement them. We need to increase the price of cigarettes, right? So in other words, a Pigouvian tax, if you're a policy wonk. We need to ban advertising. We need plain packaging. We need to ban smoking in public places, and we need denormalization campaigns. Clinton started that in the mid-1990s. The first one was at Woodbridge High School, Woodbridge, New Jersey, about 1995, 96, in that range. I know my father went up there to get a glimpse of Bill Clinton. It was right up the street from where I grew up in Woodbridge there. And now the street is Richie Sambora Way. I forget what the name of the street used to be. Anyway, they, after Bon Jovi, he's a graduate there. Number one. Number two was that Mr. Bell, who was a neighbor of ours, he was the principal, and his daughter also attended that school. So, I remember the big picture on the Home News Tribune, or maybe it was the News Tribune back there, of his daughter and everything else. So, but anyway, I digress. So they've been doing this for a long time. Denormalization is going on for 30 years. The government's been paying people in Hollywood, right, to do this since at least the 1990s, right? That's the advantage of listening to this show. I remember this crap when nobody else does, right? And another thing we need to think, as fewer people smoke, tobacco companies and profits are more threatened. That's why they are fighting back, and they're recovering, in part by launching new products. For example, e-cigarettes, heated tobacco products, and nicotine products. And funding massive public relations campaigns to claim they've changed, deceiving us once again about what they're up to. I think it's very important to take a step back and think about the broader framework of commercial determinants. Right? And then she goes on and talk about tobacco and everything else. We need a new approach. If we recall last week, our article from Vox, what you need is connection. What you need is connection. That's what that article said about the COVID response and NIH, where we work under a model, especially if we're safety people, we work under the model that, hey, I'm going to give information, and that information is going to be given back to us here and everything else. And you know what? I'm going to go to commercial break here. I don't know. We'll talk about that afterwards. I'm on a roll here. What can you say to our readers to encourage them to quit smoking? 2 out of 3 smokers will eventually die from smoking. It's so risky. Why would they jump from the 4th floor of a building? No, because it's too risky. But smoking is generally taken up in youth when the risks aren't fully understood. And it's addictive with that. Aside from tobacco companies, which now also sell e-cigarettes, do other large corporations, such as those that sell food and alcohol, operate in the same way? Answer, yes. If you think about alcohol companies, they sell alcohol and also low or zero alcohol beverages. It's a win-win industry. They make money for their primary, more harmful products, and then they make products that are a little less bad and make money from those too. There are many advertisements and there are many advertisements and slogans that shift all the responsibility to the consumer along the lines of drink in moderation. That's your responsibility. But what's the industry's responsibility? Doesn't have one. That is the core of the problem. I was talking earlier about how industry is shaping thinking. But what they've also done is spend a lot of money on massive public relations campaigns trying to convince the public and governments that they're part of the solution. What needs to be done is to regulate these companies, right? And it goes on and on. If the industry is affected by policy, it shouldn't be able to be at the table where policy decisions are made. I think the Supreme Court has said that I forget the name of the ruling, that corporations are people with that. Question, so that would be a major, there would have to be a law written, passed by Congress if we had a functioning government here, and signed by the president that would actually say this is what the policy is, and then the Supreme Court cannot regulate this, cannot rule on this. You say, Jim, can they do this? Oh, yeah, they can do that. I'm not an attorney, but I could give you examples, right? One of them was Tom Daschle in the 90s, where late 90s, early 2000s, that exempted South Dakota, which I believe he was the senator from there, from all, right, there was a prohibition on controlled burns. So they had a controlled burn in South Dakota, and some other things that go on that were not legal anywhere else, because he got an exemption and put in there, this can't be litigated. Now, what's the logic behind that? My understanding of the logic is that courts make the laws. I'm sorry. Legislative branch makes the laws, not the courts. And the Senate appoints or confirms, and the president confirm judges and appoint judges. And therefore, the judges that they appoint cannot be more powerful than the people that put them there. Right? With that, that's my understanding. I don't know how that really works out in the in the legal world. Of all the tactics that are practiced by these large corporations, which is the most dangerous? Reputation management. That's what this book is about. Reputation management. Jay, I told them today, broad-based application is in this book. Broad-based. The Signal Transmission Trilogy by Jay Allen. Right? Reputation management. What they do is invest in what they call corporate social responsibility, which means we're the good guys, I'm your friend, and I'm going to help you. I'm your friend, right? A colleague in Colombia was telling me that soft drink manufacturers use all the local water, and there's no water for people to drink, and then they buy soft drinks, right? With that, do you have any hope that the situation can change? I am hopeful, and I think the best solution is to move toward a different economic model. The world is realizing that we can't maintain capitalism as it is. Look at the planet global warming, and then she advocates for socialism. This is what the problem here is with this, right? I think we learned this through COVID. People want their agency. I think that's what it comes down to. People want to be able to make these choices about their own life, and they take offense to other people making those choices. With that, good, bad, or ugly, and that's basically what it comes down to. And I think that they need to. Do more education. It's education with this stuff. With that, and make a connection, right? So right off the bat, right, you go through here, and she makes all these wonderful points. And this may just be the author of the article here, But then we cannot maintain capitalism as it is. Look at the planet, global warming, biodiversity loss, growing inequalities, poverty, health problems, and everything else. People want, right? We have a pathological system. Governments need to wake up. It's unsustainable with that. Okay, so she talks against corporations, okay. But after our experience here, during COVID, and a lot of the decisions that well-intentioned government agents make, I don't know. And when you look, now I can look back on my career here for the last 33 years. A lot of these people at the government, they're well-intentioned, but they don't know what the hell they're doing. Right? You heard of the Peter principle, where you get promoted to the level of your incompetence, where you have good field workers doing the right job. Rather than rewarding them, we promote them, and then they're unpromotable at a certain point. It is what it is here. So this was from today, from Study Finds. Oh, and we're also, you know what? Let me go to commercial break here, and we'll come back at you. Let me take a break here.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
Safety Wars is streaming now.
safetyfm.com.
So let me expand a little bit on what I just said, right? We want to give... Now, we always talk about content. We got to do content. And with some regulations, you got to give content. If you're giving 1910-120 training for hazardous waste site operations and emergency response, you got to give content. Certain things. You're doing outreach training, you have to have content, but you need connection. And we always think that if we give content, people are going to think logically, and, now they're going to agree with it. That ain't the freaking way it is. If that's the way it was, we would be out of a job, right? And corporations would be run a little bit differently. And the other day, I picked up this shirt. I find your lack of logic disturbing. Now, and people got a good kick out of it when I wore that. It was a perfect, Jim. Yes, that is a Star Trek reference. That is a quote from Leonard Nimoy. I forget which episode it was here. All right, heart attack. This is from Study Finds. Heart attacks are down nearly 90% since 1970, yet heart disease has become a more complex killer. Heart attack deaths have dropped 89% since 1970 thanks to major medical advances, public health efforts, and better emergency care. Other heart conditions like heart failure, arrhythmias, and high blood pressure-related disease have sharply increased, now accounting for nearly half of all heart disease deaths. Maybe it's because they changed what the definition was of high blood pressure, right, and lowered it. And I know a lot of doctors, like, yeah, they keep lowering this crap along with cholesterol levels, right? They keep changing them to sell more medication. I've had doctors say that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor and don't take medical advice from me. Check with your own doctor. However, it makes us say, As Americans live longer, surviving heart attacks often leads to chronic heart problems, highlighting the growing need to manage long-term cardiovascular health, not just prevent heart attacks. So deaths from heart attacks have plummeted by an ascending 89%, right? However, Americans are now dying from other heart problems at alarming rates. A new study from Stanford University reveals that the nature of heart disease mortality has transformed. So now we're survivable. The heart attacks are more survivable, but now you're going to die of some other heart problem because that's right. Back in 1970, when your grandparents were young adults, 91% of all heart disease deaths came from what doctors call ischemic heart disease. This includes heart attacks and related conditions caused by blocked arteries. Fast forward to 2022, and the number has dropped to just 53%. Meanwhile, deaths from other heart conditions have skyrocketed. The data published in Journal of American Heart Association analyzed over 37 million heart disease deaths spanning more than a half a century. Researchers discovered that acute heart attacks deaths have dropped. Why have they plummeted? Better care. And if you grew up watching the TV show Emergency, that had a lot to do with this, right? Because at the beginning of the show, which ran for like 8 years and from 70s into the early 80s, nobody had paramedics. Paramedics were very rare. Now, basically everybody in the country has access to paramedics with that. And again, better response. They'll live longer and they die of something else with that. I hate to get morbid, but, it is what it is. All right. Here's some other stuff. Let's talk about some of the internet stuff. This is from the U.S. Sun. Downstream. Your favorite YouTubers could disappear from the site over shock rule that blocks some creators. So the news will come as a blow to young creators on YouTube. In less than 4 weeks, the age limit for live streaming on YouTube is being increased. Currently, you're allowed to live stream if you're on your own. If you're 13 years old, from July 22nd onward, you need to be at least 16 years old. If the creator has an adult present in the video, then all is fine. YouTube owner Google has warned that any live streams featuring 13 to 15-year-olds who are not visibly accompanied by an adult may have their live chat disabled, and the account may temporarily lose access to live chat or other features. Please note that in the future, we plan to take down these live streams, and the account may temporarily lose its ability to live stream. It's not why Google has adjusted to the age. I think it's a good thing with this. Right? I tell you what, you're on YouTube, and you're like, what the hell is a 13-year-old doing with this? You click on that, and it's like, and it's like, and your son or your daughter is like, oh yeah, look that, dude, what the hell are they doing? Give me that. You're not watching that. A lot of sick people out there, dude. Right? A lot of sick people. I mean, we had stories all through this week about children being found, what we used to call runaways, or now we know that most of them, some of them are runaways, but a good chunk of them are not. And what do? Now, how many of these YouTube videos under 16-year-olds are from an adult encouraging this kind of behavior? Shameful behavior, we'll leave it at that. Should be ashamed of yourselves. But they're not. Hey, all for the shock value. Brad Pitt. Thieves scaled the fence, must have went over before ransacking Brad Pitt's LA home, sources say. Pitt Pitt wasn't home, sources said. The thieves ransacked the home and took an unknown amount of miscellaneous property. All right. Also, did you hear Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom are broken up? So, now, hey, guys, I'm not one of them, obviously, but guys, there's Katy Perry's available. And if you're a female, Orlando Bloom is available. Or if you have any combination thereof, we got beautiful people available here. All right? There goes, I'm not with that. But that was some of the take out there in the blogosphere. I mean, they need, I hope they get back together. To be honest, they're able to work out their differences for the sake of their children. And with that, whatever that is, wish them well. Okay, going on down. Where are we here? After the hour, we are 35 minutes. Okay. Let's talk about this. The Church of England prepares for a serious war involving the UK. Now, who is the head of the Church of England? Who is that? King Charles. So when they say Church of England, just realize it's King Charles. And you thought that they monarchs were out of power, right? You thought they were out of power. Yeah. I mean, someone asked me this week, hey, Jimmy, why do we have problems in Iran? Why did we do this? I said to him, because the British. I'm sorry, they had their hand in everything. So they still have their hand in everything, right? So here we go. The Church of England will prepare its parishes to act as a church in a time of conflict, as fears grow of Britain being sucked into combat. Well, that's probably a good thing. And the Church of England is readying for a major war by drawing up plans to support the nation during a serious conflict involving the UK and to make it simpler to appoint military chaplains. The Right Reverend Hugh Nelson, the Bishop of the Armed Forces, said on Monday, quote, I've been hearing as I've traveled around military establishments and spoken to armed forces personnel over the past 2 years at least. Adjusting the camera, I should have left it alone. And of course, we knock it over. Bear with me a second here, folks. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Quote, the Church of England is Right Reverend Hugh Nelson, Bishop to the Armed Forces, said on Monday. I've been hearing as I've traveled around the military establishments and spoken to armed forces personnel over the past 2 years at least of rising concern about the threat of a very serious conflict, including conflict that involves the UK. He said that the church must do everything we can to pray and work and advocate for peace, but added they must also face the reality and put in place, or at least begin to have conversations about putting in place plans on how the church might need to respond, and if there was to be a serious conflict. Nelson said the church would take inspiration from leadership provided by archbishops and bishops during the Second World War. Good idea. He said that military chaplaincy, which dates back to 1796 as a formal body, had a deep experience and very long tradition of serving both armed forces personnel and the church in times of war, so we're clearly learning from them. All right, so again, we're going to talk about that. Here, COVID-19 comes up. Nelson, who is also Bishop of St. Germans in Cornwall, said that lessons must be learned from lack of preparation for a global pandemic before COVID-19 struck. He said the church would not be moving to a formal war footing, but added, we do not want to be in the situation that we were all in the church and wider society, where those that knew things said they were, that new things said there will one day be a pandemic, and none of us had done anything preparation for it. Boy, I wonder who that was over there. Let me point out, right, and this is before I had the platform that I have here, I pointed out to a lot of people, including decision makers. Remember, I was involved in politics for many years. We're not prepared for a pandemic. because of X, because of Y, because of Z. And the CDC is not prepared because I can tell you that based on experience with dealing with them, the anthrax cleanups. Well, in one ear and out the other. Leadership in both parties. Let that sink in. Here we have another person saying this in England. It's what we call a Columbus egg. Everybody knows it, but nobody wants to talk about it. And again, it's not a very sexy topic. I get it. People don't want to hear doom and gloom. I get it 100%. But, that's the way it is. So that's what they want to do is, okay, PrEP. Pretty good idea. Okay, we're not going to cover that story. Where are we going here? Here we have music icon Brian Wilson suffered from multiple health conditions, including sepsis and chronic kidney diseases, which when he died last week. Beach Boys found that Brian Wilson's immediate cause of death was due to respiratory arrest, according to documents obtained by Fox News Digital. He was 82. Rest in peace. The County of Los Angeles Medical Examiner's Office determined respiratory arrest as Wilson's main cause of death. The Good Vibrations singer died on Wednesday, June 11th. Respiratory arrest occurs when breathing stops while the heart continues to beat. The most common causes of cardiac arrest is respiratory arrest, according to the American Heart Association. So, okay, on that. July 4th travel surge expected as CSA announces record-breaking screening. Every one of these things, isn't that because we're out of the COVID lockdowns? And people are like, man, you know what? I got to go somewhere. I need a bucket list item. So they got a little bit of bling, maybe they say. Maybe they're on better financial footing and they're going out on the road. With summer travel, and this is from Fox News, for summer travel in full swing on July 4th, just up ahead, the TSA has announced another record-breaking day of flying has already achieved. Agents screened 3.1 million travelers this past Sunday, marking it the busiest day nationwide in TSA history. A lot of stuff here, right? Spriggs added, we appreciate those who arrive to the checkpoint prepared with real ID or other acceptable forms of ID and with no prohibited items and carry-on bags. Okay, great. Boom. Now, this is an opinion piece by Matt Fagiana. I'm reading off of Fox News, but I believe he published this elsewhere. Know how to protect yourself from a possible terror attack. Situational awareness tactics are key to keeping communities safe. In times like this, you hear the concern from your neighbors, especially since last week. They've known that I've been hearing this whole thing of terror cells in the United States going back to the Cold War, guys. Way back before 9/11. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to mention his name because he is a former public official that I went to high school with, right? We were both in high school at the same time. And his father was in the diplomatic corps. And I asked him, well, what's the biggest problem we're going to have? He says, Iran and Iraq. My father told me Iran, and this was in the mid-1980s. And look at how things worked out. Iran, Iraq. Now that there are Iranian sleeper cells pose a dangerous threat, such scientists, such cells could carry out attacks on U.S. citizens, retaliation, people are on edge, and he's like, look, the whole thing, situational awareness. When have we heard about that? This is another form of now, rather than blame the worker, now we're into the public health arena, the public safety arena. Blame the people. Well, you have to have situational awareness. What the hell does that mean? Be paranoid of everybody? We're going to live with complete paranoia? No, maybe we need to do a little bit more things. So what does he say? Follow reputable sources, because social media screws with people, right? Subscribe to credentialed news organizations. Number 3, be cautious of influencers with agendas. Practice situational awareness and readiness. Right? Put the phone down, look around. Okay, that's good. If you see something, say something, trust your gut. Mentally rehearse the unexpected. So, what I do, when I go into a hotel, and when my children were younger, there's some lightning right outside the hotel here. When my children were younger, what did we do? We went on a tour of the hotel. Hey kids, let's see where the pool is. So we took a rather circuitous route all the time. Why? These are the emergency exits. These are the stairs. And everything else. This is, hey, if we have a problem, this is where we're going to meet outside. And we go on and on and on. Yeah, you're with your kids, but you never know. They may be down in the pool with your mom. I'm up here broadcasting safety wars, vice versa. No, you got separate. Normal life happens, right? So we would go through all this stuff. Again, rehearse the unexpected. Learn, run, hide, and fight. This DHS endorsed model gives civilians a plan for surviving active threats. And stay informed with reputable sources and everything else that we talked about. Again, very soon, Disaster Preparation Month is coming, right? All of September, we talk about it. Okay. And all right, that story disappeared. This is from the Epoch Times. Former New York governor aide in Chinese agent case faces new charges of COVID-19 supplies scheme. Linda Sim is accused, and again, everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty, is accused of steering lucrative state contracts to businesses linked to her family in early days of COVID-19 pandemic. Right, and she was indicted in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York. The new charges delivered by the federal grand jury the day before stem from an alleged scheme to steer lucrative state contracts to businesses linked to her family. And it goes on and on and on. Oh, wow, I'm shocked. CDC advisors recommend removal of mercury, right, a.k.a. thimerosal. We talked about that. Compulsive phone use triples suicide risk in teens, according to a study. The amount of time teens spend on phones and social media is trumped by compulsive and addictive use. By the time many children turn 10, they may already be on a path that doubles or even triples the risk of suicide. A new longitudinal study published Wednesday in JAMA, right? And I tell you what, why don't we go into JAMA? I have the article right here. The JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, it's an article by I'm gonna destroy these names, Yunyu Zhao, Wan Meng, and Timothy Brown, and several others. Have an article. Addictive screen use trajectories and suicidal behaviors, suicide ideation, meaning you're thinking about suicide, and mental health in U.S. youths. Question, are addictive screen use trajectories associated with suicidal behaviors, suicidal ideation, and mental health outcomes in U.S. youth? The findings, in this cohort study of 4,285 U.S. adolescents, 31.3% had increasing addictive use trajectories for social media and 24.6% for mobile phone use over 4 years. High or increasing addictive use trajectories were associated with elevated risks of suicidal behaviors or ideation compared with low addictive use. Youths with high peaking or increasing social media use or high video game use have more internalizing and externalizing symptoms, meaning both high and increasing addictive screen use trajectories were associated with suicidal behaviors, suicidal ideation, and worse mental health in youths. right? And they have a very long here, right? So they're just giving you information. Now, this is what the problem with, again, they're giving you information. And oftentimes scientists get into this trap, safety people get into this trap. We're going to give you information, financial people, we're going to give you information, X, Y, and Z. Right? And you should want to do this because of information X, Y, and Z. That's not the way it works. Not the way it works, guys. With that. And going on with the Epoch Times article, heightened emotional vulnerability. I think we've all, unfortunately, know of a family or situation where people have actually gone out and done some pretty horrible things to themselves and others based on cyber type stuff. Whether it's bullying, whether it's a whole thing. A couple years ago, we had teenage girls with Hat Man compelling them to do things, right? And people think that it's cool to do one thing or another, cyberbullying. I know one thing. You need to get, and we had a discussion with this at my Bible study group at church, that if you have a teenager with a phone or a young adult and you're paying the phone bill, you have, everybody has a contract in that discussion group but me. Because it's well understood. I pay for the phone, I have access to everything on that phone. But dad, I said, real simple. If you're doing anything nefarious, your mother or I, and I have to say what nefarious means, your mother or I, our employment and our ability to make money and supply this whole household is at risk. Number one, maybe number two. And number one, we have to make sure you're not into anything that's going to hurt you or someone else. That's number one. Well, what do you mean? I said, and then I go back into stories from when I was young and when my brothers were young. They're much older than me, where people were like selling drugs out of the house. Guess what? Under civil asset forfeiture, the whole house went bye-bye. They're living at home with mom, dad. They're involved in any illegal activities. The police have a warrant, or maybe they're in hot pursuit. They have a warrant. They're going through the whole house, and they don't care what condition the house is going to be left in. They go through everything. Back in the early days of the internet, my in-laws, their extended family, had a situation where a child was doing inappropriate things, 13 or 14-year-old, mentally, what's the word I'm looking for, the politically correct word, right, developmentally disabled child was on the internet talking to a pedophile. Well, guess what? The police came down and it was not a pretty thing and they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't know whether the parents were involved or not involved and this and that. All that. This was in 1992 or 1996, 1997 at the beginning of the internet. So this has been going on a long time. Again, you got to keep an eye on children and what they are doing, whether guide them, right? You hate to go and make rules because we all know what people do with rules. Some kids are compliant, some are not so compliant. And, with the whole thing. So, this week's NATO summit in The Hague was marred by a tragic irony. Donald Trump, and this is from the telegraph.co.uk. This week's NATO summit in The Hague was marred by tragic irony. Donald Trump achieved a major diplomatic victory as his calls for increased European defense spending converted into reality. The final summit declaration text announced NATO's commitment to spending 5% of its budget on defense and articulated its ironclad support for the Article 5 collective force defense. While the U.S. President's big win should have enhanced Europe's sense of security against the Russian threat, the NATO summit left the alliance's eastern flank with a feeling of grave unease. Trump's inflammatory comments on the ambiguity of Article 5 left the Baltic states questioning whether NATO, that's Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, questioning whether NATO would confront Russia's intensifying array of hybrid threats. So, again, dismissal. While Trump and another guy, Root, hailed defense spending increases that should increase NATO's long-term resilience, the NATO Joint Declaration's marginalization of Ukraine undoes many of the benefits of the system. Long-term security is impossible if we surrender Russia to the Ukraine. Okay, so how far are we willing to go? This is a opinion piece by Samuel Romani. How far are we willing to go with this? All right. Now, have you heard about the new Netflix series? I wanted to talk about this, but I'm in Netflix talking about anthrax, talking about this, right? And this is about the Carnival Triumph cruise ship. Back in 2013, was it? They had a fire on board. They couldn't flush the toilets. And a whole bunch of stuff. They're calling it, "I was told to poo in a bag on the cruise of nightmares," was the quote. When Devin Marvel stepped on board the Carnival Triumph cruise ship at the dock of Galveston, Texas, he assumed his biggest obstacle to overcome would be to impress his future in-laws. Not long before, the 28-year-old had proposed to his high school sweetheart, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to tell you a little story here. Right, so I was working on this book for years, right? Looks like I'm going to have to reissue it. Nuclear Terrorism, Family Response Guide. I was all into disaster preparation and everything. Superstorm Sandy hit. My wife went along with it because she's a good sport. Okay, if that's what you're interested in, great, just don't go nuts. Then Superstorm Sandy hit without power for 11 days. I was a god for 4 days. You want to impress your in-laws? Show them how prepared you are in the event of emergencies. Show them that you have capacity and resilience, which equals safety. Right? That's what I would do. Don't take them on a freaking cruise. And then, we couldn't flush the toilets. You're surrounded by water, dude. Nobody on that ship could flush a toilet. Now I understand there are different design toilets, but come on. You're surrounded by water, salt water. Are you freaking kidding me? We couldn't bathe. Oh, you got freaking salt water there. You couldn't bathe. I mean, who the hell does the emergency planning on the Carnival? Wow. Any of these cruise ships. So anyway, that's what I got for tonight. Didn't get to the OSHA stuff. We may be following that up in a minute here. And we'll come back at you tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Have to see how things work out. For Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel, and we'll catch you tomorrow or Monday. We'll see. It's a short week next week. We'll see what happens.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.